I don't know. I mean, it's just like when you look at that, I think it's partly a matter of craft. I mean, I just think sometimes it comes down to how long do you hold a scene, how do you transition between one sequence and another sequence, and if you make the right choices, then you get some emotion happening.
Absolutely.
And
have you worked with anyone else within Pixar that's quite well notified?
It was amazing. It was especially good. Well, they were all good. I mean, Lou Romano, he's a genius.
I love Lou's performance in Ratatouille.
Oh, it's amazing.
So good. See, that's the thing with Pixar, is a lot of the people that work there are also brilliant voice actors.
Well, yes. I mean, I don't know how to put that, except, like, I think you get these guys who are, they're primarily visual artists, but they're also artists in other ways. I mean, there's the old trope about, well, any good animator is also probably a musician. Good musicians make good animators, and that's certainly, I think, the case, because you're branching out. You're being artistic on other levels, and obviously performance is like that. So voice performance, and Lou was kind of a natural comic. I mean, the way people would goof around, at lunch hour and so on. That was very something that they were able to capitalize on in production. Teddy Newton was definitely another.
I know of Teddy Newton,
fellow who was a real bit of a character also, but he had some very original thinking, and he was wonderful to work with, because he definitely would have an impact on the room. I'm trying to think of other guys that I particularly.
What about Bob Peterson?
Yeah, I never really. I would talk to Bob. I never actually worked with him.
Yeah, but you spoke to him.
Oh, I'd speak to him.
Yeah,
that's right.
He just seems like a really lovely guy, Bob.
Yeah, actually, that's the other thing about these guys. They're nice guys. They're actually quite honest, decent people. And they're they care about people's feelings and all that kind of thing.
And you've most likely met John Lasseter.
Excuse me?
John Lasseter, the founder of Pixar, co-founder of Pixar. John Lasseter, director of Toy Story.
Oh, excuse me. Of course.
John
Lasseter, yes.
Sorry, it's my accent.
I'm sorry. That's terrible. Yes. I mean, again, my experience with John was mostly like a professional one, because it would be in meetings, and I was scared of the guy.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, you were afraid of what he was going to say, because it would, he'd come in and he'd say he liked or didn't like something, and it would mean like 3 more weeks of work for you, right? So, but obviously he has some real talents as far as storyboard, I should say, story and character and so on, because he's obviously they've created these films that are quite different. All the Pixar films do seem to really address story issues very well.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing we've noted with John, is how serious he takes story.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Just trying to think of somebody who.
Andrew Stanton.
Andrew Stanton again. He was a little bit outside the circle that I was kind of operating in, because again, he was over. For one thing, he was kind of a director, but on the other projects.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, I would. There would always be the. Sort of be a bit of a sort of a beer Friday evenings, in the atrium. It would be, they'd have snacks and beer, and you'd end up talking to these guys, but I can't say I really worked with them.
Yeah.
I think.
There's Pete Docter.
Pete Docter, kind of the same thing. I mean, I talked with Pete a bit, and he's obviously a very nice guy. I mean, he really does obviously care very much about people, and it's a very sort of, I don't know, sort of this very sensitive approach, I actually enjoyed. I did hang out a fair bit with Jan Pinkava, if you remember him. Who was the initial director on Ratatouille.
Yeah.
Whatever
He
happened.
did Jerry's Game as well, didn't he?
Yeah, Jerry's Game. Yeah, he was a brilliant guy. He was a brilliant artist. He had some of his artwork on display, kind of in the building, and drawing, sculpture. I mean, he was an excellent artist, and had a very European sensitivity, I think, which is interesting. So things were a bit different there.
The only thing I really noticed with him, though, is that at the end of Ratatouille, he has a much smaller credit compared to Brad.
Oh well, that's a long story, and I'm not part of that story. But obviously, partway through production, the director was replaced.
Yeah. I saw on IMDb. I kept myself updated.
But I mean, I think they're duty bound, to give the guy some. They have to give him some credit because he was responsible for a great deal of the initial design, the story, and so forth and so on. But anyway, So, but I liked Jan. I think he was a great guy. So there you go. That's probably about it.
What was the experience like of working in this Pixar studio? Because it's known for being a very quirky kind of place.
Oh,
it's made for its employees essentially.
Well, I mean, it was. Let's see. It was good. It was good in that it was very creative. They had people there from a lot of different pursuits. I mean, they were guys who were brought into the studio to work, who were not maybe the obvious choices. They would have done something otherwise. But they brought in a lot of. They brought in a lot of people who, for lunch hour lectures and so on, and they would be from all over the place. I remember they brought in. I've forgotten his name. But he's one of the puppeteers from the Muppets. It was the fellow who does. Who's the character with the hook nose?
Dave Goles. Dave Goles is that's Gonzo.
Right.
That's Gonzo.
Gonzo, that's right. Yeah. I think it was because he's a resident in the Bay Area anyway, so he was local. But he came in, he did this lecture at lunch hour, and it was brilliant. It was just brilliant. The things he had to say about performance, things like that. And he had all this material, behind the scenes material of how they made the Muppets. And Miyazaki came to visit. So,
did you ever get to meet Miyazaki in person?
Well, yeah. I mean, there was kind of a lineup, and everybody got to come up and sort of shake his hand.
Yeah.
People had things for they wanted him to sign and all that kind of thing. But I mean, because he's a true.
Oh God, yes.
What's the word for it? I don't know. He's a
visionary.
A modern legend in animation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's really changed things a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so being in a studio like that obviously allows you, to meet these people, or at least to get a little closer to them. They had another reason for working there would be, they were willing to take chances on things. I mean, the fact that Incredibles is very different. It's something they hadn't really done before, and there was an awful lot of technical issues, which they had to address in order to get the film done, and I don't think anybody else would have stood for it. They really rose to the occasion. I don't know. It's hard to say. Other studios might, but Pixar somehow is singular that way. The very fact that John Lasseter, believed in Brad Bird enough to allow him to come to Pixar to make that movie.
It does pick up on that in the Pixar story as well. It points out their relationship from before. Yeah.
There was things like. On the other hand, there was certainly I experienced some things at Pixar where Pixar definitely had its sort of corporate side. Could be a little stiff about things. Some things would happen, some things wouldn't. Stuff like that. Anyway.
Did you ever find the secret room? If you've heard of it.
I went to the secret room.
Oh, you went to the secret room.
Yep,
oh, wow.
Yep.
Is it as good as it's been?
Oh yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing. I mean, that's why Pixar is great.
Yeah. I mean, like they often have like
the freedom to do all these strange things.
There's like these themes, aren't there?
Well, yeah, because all the fact that, well, the very idea that all these animators are allowed to devote so much time and energy to something like decorating their room. In any other company, you know, the producers would be saying, "What are you doing? You're wasting your time. Get back to work." You know, but of course, Pixar realizes that doing something like that can only provide more energy, you know, and the animators will have even a better attitude when they'll produce better work faster, etc., etc. Oh yeah, it's like, and well, I don't know. I mean, I suppose other people are trying to sort of copy the Pixar formula, but I don't know how many are successful at it.
There was a good comparison by an animation critic that said that DreamWorks should be aiming to be the Warner Brothers competition compared to Disney.
Okay.
Because there was a good comparison that back in the day Warner Brothers was competing against Disney.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and
there is a bit like that. Yeah. Because here's why. Actually, I think here's why. Because if you look at DreamWorks' product, it's a little more, it's a teeny bit more savvy. It's a bit more modern. There's a lot of modern cultural references, and that's what Warner Brothers did. If you think about all those shorts where they would have gags in those shorts, which would refer to contemporary events or to culture that was contemporary to the 1940s. I mean, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but they were always like, you know, singing snippets of songs and those things.
So basically tongue-in-cheek satire.
And it was, the humor was much sharper.
Yeah,
much more satirical, which of course Disney never did. So. Yeah, so in that regard, I could certainly see where DreamWorks might be considered to be similar to Warner Brothers. Yeah.